through your freedom.
Cut out the jibber jabber. Don't be babbling like a fool. Say what you got to say. That's all. Then shut your dang pie hole.
Love Mr. T. Folks, welcome to the Prepared Mind channel. Right off the bat, if you're not on Patreon, you should be on patreon.com. $2 a month, 7 cents a day for the month, each month. It's not asking too much, and it guarantees that we stay right here doing what we do best. And that's pointing out that it is hit the fan, that you should be prepared, and what you should be doing next. We're looking at current events, folks. It's not getting better. Yes, we're seeing some victories. We're waking some people up. But that doesn't mean it's over. The conflict is just starting. In fact, I've got some ways to point it out today. Today's not a slow news day. It's President's Day. It's not a slow news day. It's not a holiday. In fact, you know what? It's not President's Day. It's George Washington's birthday. And it's becoming more and more self-evident every single day that everything that's been done to our country over the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years has been to bring our nation down. It's not President's Day. It's George Washington's birthday. They, the political leftists, under the guise of academic expansion and academic fairness and academic smartness, right? No, they're stealing our nationalist, meaning American heroes, and our philosophical heroes and our political heroes. And George Washington might just be the greatest of all those things for America. Freedom. It's George Washington's birthday. The next move the left will have, folks, is to change it to Racist President's Day. I tell you, folks, these people are sick. Now, we got a lot of things to talk about today. Where do we want to start? Oh, by the way, yeah, it is going to be the monologue followed by the Q&A, question and answer. So get your questions in to Jolene. It's not a holiday. It really isn't. It is so much more. Now, I want to remind everyone, folks, the way they control us is using political power and influence and media power and influence to systematically deny us the truth, right? By using their authority, and they try to control us. Government denies all the truths, do they not? Cerveza bug, military and political actions, they deny the truth and tell us what they want us to believe. Media, the mainstream media, denies all the truths that we want and give us just propaganda. Corporations deny truth and they push their various financial and profiteering agendas. Doctors are silenced if they speak truth, right? Only Dr. Science is allowed to speak. And folks, they are denying truth and using their authority to make us believe it. You, thankfully, are not believing their baloney, their crap. I want to bring this up again. It is George Washington's birthday. The leader of the Continental Army that battled tyranny and won, defeated it in not just battles, but in war. The police in Ottawa, Canada, told people, you are in the red zone now. If you don't leave right now, you will be arrested. The Ottawa police are harassing and arresting citizens for walking down the street. Think about this, folks. Only during martial law, the law of tyrants, can you be stopped from exercising what is normally a right. In order to stop you from walking down the street, getting a cup of coffee, getting a donut, going where you want, you can never be stopped, never harassed, unless there is tyranny and martial law, and then the police can say you're in a red zone. If you don't leave right now, you're under arrest. Get back in your homes, get back in your hovels. I'm telling you, folks, it is nasty, nasty out there. We need to think about where we're at in history. You know, how did they let Nazis take over? It's because they just thought, well, you know, it's just another day and it's going to pass. It's just temporary. It's cool. No. Stalin and communism, Chairman Mao of China and communism, day by day by day, they assume more power until ultimately they have all the power. And then the people are like, oh, how did that happen? Yeah, right. We need real patriots, real political elected servants. Like, I don't know, Carrie Lake of Arizona. Her first political ad, folks, is going to expose the BS in the Arizona political system, because she's going to air commercials and the BS mainstream media news outlets. That's when she's going to do it, during the news. And those news outlets are required under federal communications commissions. That's right, federal bureaucracy, the FCC. They're required under those guidelines to air Carrie Lake's political commercials, and it's going to absolutely expose and embarrass them for being liars. Right. And here's what one person had to say in response to that. One rogue voice in the media is better than the roaring silence of complicity. What have we had for 2 freaking years? Roaring silence of complicity in the mainstream media, at the national level and at the local level. One rogue voice, Joe Rogan. What an appropriate name the man has to go along with this proverb. Joe Rogan was the rogue voice, and he has caused nothing but trouble as far as cerveza bug. Carrie Lake, she's going to really push it with regard to, shall we say, the elections. She's running for the office of governor, not as a rhino, but as an American. Rock the world with your voice, folks. Speak up now. As my mother used to say, speak up now or forever hold your peace. Is it a slow news day? No, it is not. Up in the state of Michigan, where that witch governor Gretchen Whitmer is governor, right? Parents are still fighting for their rights. Children are still fighting to breathe, to be free. Now, down here in the South where I'm at, things are okay. I know what's going on to the east, to the west, up north, in the southern hemisphere. I know what's going on in Australia, in Europe. Folks, I know. I feel it. Even though I'm mostly free, I see how people are still being forced on a daily basis to obey their masters under threat of police here in America. Even though governors are letting up all over the place and saying, well, yeah, we got an election coming up. We need to take care of the masks. Right? Dr. Booster Rooster is like, oh no, this isn't political at all. It's not political. Democrat governors and mayors letting off on their mandates. It totally is. Well, a parent confronted the school board members with photos of members of that board and their families without masks. Well, guess what? The school board didn't like that. Calling in the police to confront the parent, to intimidate the parent, to stop the parent's free speech in a public meeting. Is this Canada now? We used to say shit, folks, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Like, what is this, the Russia? Is this the Soviet Union? Is this country communist? You don't tell me what to do. You don't tell me to be quiet. You get out of my face. You respect my privacy, my individual rights. That's what we said, folks, 30, 40 years ago. People are rediscovering their voices. I hope you are too. Share this video and others with everyone. It is going to get much louder, folks. Much louder. In fact, Canada is so bad now. Get this. You know, Iran, the Ayatollah Khomeini, right? These people who have sanctions on them because they're not free enough, because they won't obey, right? They're bad, bad, bad Iranians. Well, the Iranian regime, folks. Remember that little guy, Ahmadinejad? Always, I say his name, it clears my throat. Ahmadinejad, right? The Iranian regime has condemned Justin Trudeau, right, for violently cracking down on freedom protesters. It's really sad when Iran, a country of political, religious tyranny, looks at your country and says it's bad. Yeah, I know that these other countries that are tyrannical, they love to find any problem in the West and point it out. But I think it is actually appropriate, absolutely appropriate. Unbelievable. What is going on today, folks, is continuing to not baffle me, but to support the idea that it has hit the fan and we need to be prepared. Now, Putin has done a lot of work today. He has declared a formal recognition of the Ukraine separatist regions as sovereign states. Now, Ukraine, compared to many countries in Europe, is very large and could be broken into smaller states. For example, the former Yugoslavian nation is made up of small ethnic political states, countries, if you will. They're independent of one another. So Putin is recognizing them, and he is also trolling Biden and the Democrat and banker gangs to see what their next stupid move is going to be. He's trolling them, folks. He recognizes these as sovereign states. And the U.S. is chewing, the U.S. government, that is. That's right, the deep state, banker state, corporate state of D.C. is just chewing on its tongue. Now, I want you to think about this, because this is exactly what I thought. I thought, you know what? Who gives a shit if Putin recognizes the breakaway republics or breakaway states of the Ukraine? You know, why should I think what he is doing is right just because it's the opposite of, you know, Biden and the UK and NATO? Well, if we remember, we were told that if there's a corrupt government and there is a significant number of people, they should be able to break away from that government. They should be able to resist that government. They should be able to do what they want, and no one should interfere, right? The people should be able to leave a corrupt government and form more beneficial associations and a protective government body, right? Well, that's how our nation was formed. But the U.S. in modern times, folks, didn't they say that about Libya? Muammar Gaddafi, bad. Muammar Gaddafi, bad guy. People should be able to throw him off. And how about Syria? Same story there. We should allow freedom fighters in Syria. If you look at the maps before and after World War I, the names of countries change. Political boundaries change. Same thing happened after World War II. The names and boundaries change. But it's incredible how a government today believes that everything's always been like this, so you can't change it. Well, it's all politically expedient, and it's all horseshit, folks. It has hit the fan. Countries are falling apart. Economies are falling apart. And everyone is grasping whatever straws they can to hang on, whatever ropes and strings they can so they don't get thrown loose. It's incredible. And we're not exempt, folks, in the United States. We now have a United States trucker convoy, and it's coming to D.C. Now, interestingly, and I don't know if this was necessary, if this was a good idea, or yeah, it is necessary. It is a good idea, and we should use free speech. That's what it's for, is to use, right? The trucker convoy organizer says they will be a, quote, giant boa constrictor for Washington, D.C. They're going to squeeze it, they're going to choke it, they're going to swallow it. Wow. Now, redress of grievances. What's the problem? Violation of our rights. Mandating we obey. We are not slaves, we're not servants, we're not peasants, we're not pissants, despite what these elitists think. And they really believe, folks, that they're that much better than us, that they're that much smarter than us, that we're so stupid that we're just going to believe their shit. I guess they really read that whole Hitler, Nazi propaganda piece that you tell a lie, you tell it big, and you keep telling it, and the people will believe it. That's what they've been trying, folks. That's what they've been pushing for 2 years now, that we need to give up our rights, that government has the power and authority, that we should accept it and just obey them. And the government keeps saying it, keeps saying it, keeps saying it. And I think they got all that they're going to get to believe it and choke that down. And now we are striking back. We, the patriots, in various groups, various areas of the country, and this convoy is interesting. The federal government knows it's coming. In fact, they put up more barriers to protect themselves. Folks, no one in the trucker community said they're going to hurt anyone. No one said they're going to commit an act of violence. This is a political boa constrictor. This is politically squeezing, politically swallowing DC. The people are speaking. Will government listen? I think not. Do me a favor, please have food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, and means of self-defense ahead of time. Right? There's going to be areas that are going to be affected by this. Food, electricity, transportation. You see, when government becomes abusive to those ends in an attempt to control and punish people, and the people resist, there will be collateral damage. There always is, just as in a war between two armies. It is not just the armies that suffer, but the entire area in which the battles take place. You don't want to be caught unawares, off guard, and unprepared. We're going to see how far this trucker thing goes. Are they going to shut down major cities like Chicago, Los Angeles? You know, we've got Washington, D.C. coming up first. Will they shut down other shithole Democrat strongholds like Portland and Seattle? I kind of made a little bit of an error, by the way, about Portland. Apparently, Antifa are the ones who were shot because Antifa messed with a biker gang. It's very interesting, folks. The news that we get, even in the world, right, of right-wingness, sometimes gets skewed. And that's okay. I don't mind making corrections when I see things change or when I see that there are corrections to be made. Unbelievable, folks. You know, I can make a correction and tell everyone that, but the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, they don't like to admit when they're wrong, right? Basically, it seems like we aren't smart enough. So they tell us, you know, what we need to believe. That's it. They get to tell us what we need to believe because we can't handle the truth.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
You see, the CDC has withheld critical information from the public. This is, of course, not according to me. This is just a news story. I'm not making any proclamations, right? The New York Times has said that the CD has been collecting much more detailed information about stuff, breaking things down by race, age, status, etc. But they didn't want to release this information out of fear. Once again, not my fear of information, but the CDC has fear. And so when they're afraid, when they have fear, folks, we don't get the facts. They have fear that their data would be, quote, misinterpreted, and that it would cause hesitancy to go out and get the Jim Jones juice. In other words, the experts believe that we are idiots and we're not capable of interpreting things and understanding information. Or maybe they know that we can interpret the information and we are smart enough. And when we see the data and how bad it is, we would know that being pureblood is the only decision that makes any sense. I guess we're going to find out, right? I'm not saying what to do. In fact, I'm saying, go ahead, read the CDC's official statements, read the New York Times, see what they have to say. But those in power, think we are that stupid, folks. They really do. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You know, Kamala Harris is an incredible piece of work, right? Let me tell you what she said. And by the way, she is an incredible piece of work. This is her quote, right? We're neck deep in SHTF. We're near potential World War III breaking out if violence and false flags occur in and around Ukraine. The world leadership that the United States sent is Kamala. And this is what she said, quote, within the context then of the fact that the window is still opening, although it is absolutely narrowing, but within the context of a diplomatic path still being open. What does that mean? That was how she spoke about Ukraine and Russia and fixing things. Well, does that make it's worse than word salad. It's more like salad excrement. Makes no sense. It's incredible, folks. It's absolutely incredible. And Kamala also went on to treat all of us human beings as complete idiots with regard to the internet and what it is. You know, it's becoming a horror show working with these people, folks, trying to just live and be free. It's almost an impossibility at this point. Okay. I have a lot of stuff to cover here. Let's keep moving. Europe and the United States is now preparing to impose sanctions on Russia because Russia is recognizing the attempts of some Ukrainians to form independent sovereign states. That makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Let's impose more sanctions on Russia. Let's really think about this, right? Europe and the US are doing that while Russia is providing Europe energy in the form of oil, gas, and nuclear fuel for their electricity, their grid. Why do Russia at any point could just say, "Oh, you want to sanction me? That's fine. No energy for you, United States of America and Europe." I mean, would you go to the only grocery store you have and tell that grocery store that you don't want to do business with them anymore? And then you come back an hour later and say, well, wait a minute, we need to get some groceries. The store's going to be like, but you just said that we're not worth doing business with. This is the world of lunacy, folks, the idiocracy in which we are living. It truly is. It truly is. Hours before a parliamentary vote today, the little tyrant, Lord Farquaad Trudeau, has demanded that the Emergencies Act remain in place. He didn't make an argument for it, he demanded it. And he claimed that any minister of parliament, any representative who votes against him is against democracy. Folks, the Emergency Act is anti-democracy. It is against democracy. The Emergency Act doesn't allow free speech. It doesn't allow free travel. It doesn't allow free trade. It doesn't allow free business associations. It doesn't allow free anything. This is typical socialist projection of their sociopathic behavior and political tyranny. This is unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. Anyone who votes against him is against democracy. Anyone who votes against his anti-democracy act is against democracy. That's how stupid these people are, folks. Yeah, for a while there, I thought Kamala was an embarrassment. Hardly when compared to others around the world. They're all in the same class together. They're all in the same boat, the same stupid boat. It is beyond, folks. It's basically beyond comprehension that they are this bad, literally. Okay, let us move on. I want to get to your questions. Make sure you've got your questions into Jolene, because at the 30-minute mark, I'm going to switch over and give it to you. I've got a lot of topics here to cover, but I want to hear what you have to say. Now, let's go back to Russia. And I want to say this to Russia. Hey, Russia, see what we have to deal with? Moscow, which is the political capital of Russia, Russian government agents, officers, officials say that the U.S. embassy is out of touch with reality because they keep releasing their dire terror alerts. Terror alert, terror alert, terror alert. We live in a world of fear porn. Remember when they said that you as a prepper, you as a patriot, you as an American were participating in scaring people, using fear to gin up attention? I'm in the same chair, so to speak, as host of this channel, and you guys are in the same chairs as viewers, subscribers, participants, and compadres, right? We're all sharing. We're in this together. And it's like, well, I'm not doing any more fear than I used to, except now everything I talk about, right, is the fear the federal government is trying to put on the rest of the world and us. The United States government is trying to scare us and the world over a terror alert in Russia. Russia's just like, hey, look, you're a breakaway republic. We're going to work with you. We're going to talk to you. We're going to treat you with dignity. We're going to listen to your grievances, etc. Right? The federal government is saying, hey, fear, 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 cerveza bug. Right? Lock yourselves down. Don't go anywhere. Close your businesses. Absolutely destroy yourselves. And when they're proven wrong, folks, they're going to step back in the future and go, hey, we're just the government. All we did was say a couple of words and you guys chose to obey. They'll play that card, of course. Yeah, the federal government's out of touch with reality. They want you to be afraid of parents. They're domestic terrorists. They want you to be afraid of our own culture. It's racist, right? In Moscow, look what we have to deal with on a daily basis. No wonder Putin is continually laughing at the West. It's incredible, folks. Right? In the age of cerveza bug, in the SHTF world, we're being reminded that unjust laws are no law at all. Never forget, folks, it's SHTF, and government is ignoring crime on one hand and creating crime on the other, fake crime. Right? So let me ask this, let me just read this. So why the obsession with labeling the protests illegal? Right? Protests in America, protests in Canada. The idea, of course, of government is to cast suspicion on them, to cast negative light on them, to demonize and demagogue anyone that opposes their fear. Sir, face a bug, mask down, mandate, get your Jim Jones juice. You can't cross the border. And then when we question that, they cast aspersion, negativity on us, portray us as harmful and morally illegitimate in our protest of what they're doing. Right? So let's juxtapose the trucker protest and the Black Lives Matter protests. Once again, folks, there is unjust law, and it is not law at all. And any government that engages in creating and enforcing unjust law, and also allowing the unlawful to continue, that's not a government. That's something quite different. In the case of the BLM Antifa protests, illegal acts were downplayed, ignored, and even encouraged by people like Kamala Harris. They were called mostly peaceful while they burned, looted, rioted, and murdered. Folks, and when it comes to peaceful protests, in which the current government regimes of Canada or the United States do not approve, right? They say they're illegal. And then they come down on them with real force. Remember, right? An oath to a liar is no oath at all. Remember that an unjust law is not a law. An unconstitutional law is null and void. Officers and agents of government acting outside the law, that is to say, acting under color of law, are actually in violation of law. And when it's a group, a large force, right, they're operating unlawfully in a racketeering fashion. We have the laws on the books. They just have to be enforced to bring this under control. But who in government will do that? Will the Attorney General, Merrick Garland? No. Department of Justice, the FBI? No, they're not going to step up. We have the Attorney General of Virginia, the Attorney General of Texas. We have Attorney Generals of states trying to bring this system under control, but it's not, folks. It's out of control. It is absolutely out of control. And I've gone a little long. I must be out of control. Let's get to your questions, your comments, your statements, your thoughts. It is time for the Q&A.
Are you ready?
Alrighty, we're back and we're back. I tell you, I've got people emailing my ear off, texting my ear off, everything. Understand, everyone out there, understand. I'm doing my best to keep up with you guys, with the news, with everything. I'm doing my very best. In fact, we have a change on our hosting for the programs. They changed some of the software up, how it works, so I'm getting used to it again already. I'm doing my best, though. And let's see what you have to say. Jolene, who is up first? We've got Oregon Patriot. He says, Canadian Police Horse Riders, that is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, trampled people while on the same day they tweet condemnation of Cuba treating protesters badly. A leaked message from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police chat says, time for the protesters to hear our jackboots, right? Where's the UN, the United Nations, the blue checks? Not one Western leader has condemned this. Well, what's interesting, Oregon Patriot, is we're starting to hear condemnation. coming out of Europe. There are some nations that are starting to say, hey, we don't agree with you, Mr. Trudeau. I'm wondering what form that's going to take, though. What form? Will it be a letter? Will it be a speech? You know, Iran has now condemned them. But yeah, there are other countries as well that are starting to look at Canada and go, wait a minute. Wait a minute. What you guys are doing is completely wrong. You know, for example, in Canada, right, a minister of parliament has said that a single mom's bank account was frozen for donating $50 to the Freedom Convoy, right? Folks, you don't have to be a militia member, a vet, or a loud patriot to be harmed in Canada. Yeah, they're starting to condemn Trudeau. They're starting to see this for what it is, right? All they're asking for is their rights to be restored. That's it. Not asking for anything special. They're not asking to break away the way sectors and parts of Ukraine are breaking away. They're just saying restore our rights, right? So when we look at what Canada is doing, freezing a mom's bank account for using a form of free speech called donation. Will America take this next step also in their federal, social, and banking terror moves? And it is, folks, as far as I'm concerned, what Trudeau is doing is terrorism. It is terrorizing the people by stopping their free speech. It's time to stop pretending, whether we're in Canada or the US or anywhere else, it's time to stop pretending that we, the people, are not being terrorized. We are. We're being terrorized, we're being threatened, and we're being abused, all of us around the world, by governments, by banks, by social media, by mainstream media, and by activist scum groups that are violent on the street, that are allowed to be violent. Yeah, more countries need to speak up. But it's fascinating, right? How, apparently Canada can criticize Cuba while they run down an old lady in a walker with a mounted policeman. And then the Canadian police officers had their their text messages screenshot by someone who didn't approve. And they were like, yeah, this is awesome. We should do more of this. Let's go, show them that we're jackbooted thugs. What a bunch of scum. All right, Jolene, what else have we got out there? I know that we've got a lot of thoughts. Folks, I'm not going to make you famous. It's just me and you just talking. But I do want to hear your thoughts. And right now we got Gary D, who says Raggedy Ann. Raggedy Ann, folks, is the little carrot top commie. Oh, I just made that one up. Jen Psaki, White House spokeswoman man. Jen Psaki stated recently that the federal government's powers always supersedes the states. This is not how I read the 10th Amendment. Part of their misinformation? Yeah, they got a name for it. They call it misinformation. They call it disinformation. They're calling it malinformation. You know, because mal and malware is dangerous. You forget, though, that the federal government and government in general now can use propaganda. That is, they can commit the act of lying. They can say whatever they want, which is one step away from doing whatever they want. Because when you complain, when you protest, they just say what they want anyway. Well, we're allowed to do that. I'll see you in court if you dare. Yeah, Jen Psaki is, by the way, a mental midget. Her brain is very small. I don't think she's very intelligent. She's given a pass by the media, allowed to say the most insane, inane, unintelligent crap and get away with it. Right? To say that the federal government's power always supersedes the states is an absolute blatant lie, and it is misinformation. Read the Constitution. It's not a big document. It enumerates or grants to the federal government. The states ratified the Constitution for the people. People came up with it. The states ratified it and gave the federal government a little bit of authority to do a few things, right? To keep the peace between the states, not as in, stop fighting, but rather to settle disputes legally in court. Right? That's what the federal court system was for. Interestingly enough, it's to settle interstate or disputes between the states, and also regulate or help the flow of interstate commerce, to mint coins, set the value thereof, to do roads and postways. They have very few responsibilities. Yet now, when you go into a law library, there's entire shelves loaded with federal rules and regulations. It's unbelievable. But still, yeah, there's that thing called the 10th Amendment. Right? All rights not enumerated to the federal government are reserved to the states and the people themselves. That's the 10th Amendment. Right? In other words, if it isn't explicitly granted to the feds, no, you don't have it. But this is the fight we have. The assumption of authority. Right? Again, you tell a lie, you tell it big, and you keep telling it until the people believe it. That's what we have with all governments around the world, and ours are no different. The assumption that the government can do no wrong, as if they're the Pope, infallible. Right? As if they're we have a theocracy, a religious government. They can do no wrong. They cannot be challenged. You can only sue them if they allow it. In other words, folks, we're dealing with a megalomaniac or a megamaniacal government institution. They think they are supreme. They're not. The federal government is sovereign with regard to other nations in front of whom it argues on the state's behalf. Now, that was the old way. The new way is the United States government is a sovereign power. And the world looks at the United States of America, but the U.S. government is a tiny little dot. It's not a state. That's the U.S. government, this tiny little dot. And all the states pay taxes to it, and it thinks it's God. It is like a Wiener Schnitzel, a Dachshund, tiny dog in a world of giant dinosaurs, and it acts and barks like it runs everything. Jen Psaki, you little witch, back off. All right, let's move on if we shall. I'm not a big fan of hers, folks. Not at all. Not at all. The Slim One says, a statement for John. I'd like to be the first to coin this phrase, 3% minus 1% equals 100%. Thank you. Or is that 3 to 1% is 100%? Okay, you got it, Slim One. You own it. Use it. Folks, the government's very scared of you and me. We represent a very vocal section of the population. I believe we're way more than 3%, though. Way more than 1%, way more than 3%. And that percent that I'm talking about is not the 1 or 3% that he is. But rather, I'm talking about the percentage of Americans that love their freedom and want them respected. They want them back. Americans, we want our freedoms. We want our liberty. I'm going to say that it's 30%, 40% of America wants its freedom back. Canada is being supported by the Canadian truckers are being supported by Canadians, by Americans. In fact, today I took a little ride and went by the local courthouse. And outside that courthouse, where normally there are Trump protesters, there were Canadian protesters waving Canadian flags. And people were honking in support of our Canadian brothers and sisters. We want our freedom. We're far more than 3%. Now, if it came down to, let's just say, a high velocity exchange of small ideas, that percentage that's going to do that, yeah, now we're getting back down into small percentages. But I just wanted to talk about a much larger percentage of people. And we need to be much, much more vocal, much louder. Alignact.com, ALIGNACT.com, alignact.com. Hopefully Jolene will put it up here on the screen for me because she's good at that. Folks, you go here, you fill it out. It's 5 or 6 data fields. You fill in who you are, where you live, etc. Hit a button and it sends information off to every serving Congress person, senator, official that should be getting information. Thank you, Jolene. You are the best. Right? I need Alignact to do more. They need to do more. They've set it up. They've got a powerhouse of a system. They've set it up. They can email blast these people. They need to do a lot more. I want them to. We need this. We need all of us to step up. We're not just 1%, some obscure, unimportant, tiny, fringe, far, anything, group. No, we're Americans. This is our country. It's our country. Thank you, Jolene. We got Steve, USMC, no tolerance. Bam, he's back. He says, I'm back, too mean to die to a bug. Good deal, Steve. I'm glad to hear that you are back on the channel with us. Steve battled the big bad bug and won. And I'm very glad, Steve. Welcome back, brother. Semper Fi. We need everyone in on this fight to whatever capacity they're capable of. And I've said before in the past, war is typically a young man's game that he plays, and the moves are made by older, more experienced, officers. But in the case of massive partisan conflict, the desire to be free, SHTF, everyone is going to be a participant in the conflict that's coming. I really believe we're going to have partisan conflict. And there will be old men sitting on their porch with a plug of chewing tobacco. And they're going to have a rest set up and probably some long-range optics that they're going to be looking through to see what's happening out there. And like AT&T, they will likely reach out and touch someone. Folks, it's that kind of world. All right, we got Todd and Prepared checking in. He says, Putin is hardcore KGB. He has no respect for Brandon or the woke soy boys. Putin is hardcore KGB. Putin was in power in the Soviet Union, folks, when it was full-on commie. Fully trained, high-level KGB bureaucrat, operative, agent. When the Soviet Union crumbled, Putin stepped in and has been what I would like to say, and it doesn't necessarily mean I have tons of respect in a positive, loving kind of way, but you got to respect the guy who takes a crumbling empire and keeps it together and from falling into absolute total chaos. You've got to respect that from an observer's standpoint. Would you like to have the Soviet Union handed to you in a million pieces? Nuclear weapons, a military, unruly people, different ethnic groups? Over there, folks, they aren't just ethnically diverse. They are ethnically diverse. Right? We have, our this community or that community. Over there, they got people that speak entire different languages in their country. Here, everyone speaks basic forms of English. Anyways, Putin, he doesn't have any respect for Joe Biden. He's laughing at and trolling Joe Biden, Kamala, the administration, Washington, D.C. He's setting up meetings with other world leaders. It used to be that to deal with Russia or China, that the United States would step up and be in front and say, what is everyone concerned? Great, I'll go take that over to Putin and we'll talk. I'll go take that to China and we'll talk. Now everyone's like, why are we going to bother with Biden? The guy is too busy sniffing little kids' hair and licking ice cream cones and taking a day off, getting a happy nap at his house in Delaware. He has zero respect. The man is hardcore. As far as soy boys go, Russia has a very good understanding of what it takes to maintain, shall we say, an orderly social and political and military system. And it does not require chopping your own testicles off and singing like the Vienna Boys Choir at the top of their lungs. No, it's quite the opposite. All right, we got Heidi checking in. Heidi. She said, did anyone else feel like the police were singling out women to pepper spray, injure, and rough up? They look like a bunch of cowardly you-know-whats to me. Heidi, you're such a polite person. They look like a bunch of cowardly pricks to me. And quite often they do. It is pretty interesting to watch police in Canada, police in Europe, police in the United States. When they get into crowd control techniques, they do what appears to be cowardly, right? The one police officer will drag someone off and several will protect them while that one person is roughed up and beat up and then cuffed and then thrown in the paddy wagon. On the one hand, it looks cowardly. It's like, you know what? If we're going to have a fight, let's have a fight. But it's not really a fight. If you look at this from the perspective of law enforcement, if they believe what they're doing is lawful and necessary, and they go into a protest or riot, their job is to arrest bad guys. Their job is to break up the riot or the protest. Again, I'm saying if it's lawful and they're lawfully behaving, that's the attitude they take in there. They're not going to run up to the biggest guy and screw with them. They're going to go after the easy targets, reduce the number of people. Additionally, for small people and women, if you see other women around you getting abused, odds are they're going to leave. They're going to see that, yeah, people are being roughed up, and it demoralizes them and it causes people to flee. But it does. To me, it looks very, very much chicken shit. You know, I take kind of a warrior's approach to it, if you will, right? I step up and I would be doing, you know, hey, who wants a piece of this? But that's a different mentality. It's a different attitude. It's a different thought. These police, their thought for the most part is get in there, make arrests, break this up. Don't get hurt. Don't get abused. Don't get killed. You know, that's their job they signed up for. Now, the disgusting part is the ones that are relishing the abuse of people, laughing at the abuse and damage that is done to people. Right? You know, there's a lot of problems when it comes to protests, and I want to step back over a big pile of shit and go back to, there was a time when the government respected the people and it didn't fuck things up all the time, and there was no need to loudly protest. There was no need for conflict. But throughout our country's history and the history of the world, people have had to protest. That's right, even America back in the 60s, back in the 30s, back in the 1800s, there are lots of protests and lots of police abuse. And when the police step over the line and start abusing people, right, they feel justified. The people feel justified in fighting back. Right? That means government has gone way too far, or government is allowing others to benefit while some don't. Right? In other words, an unfair situation results in conflict, and people are going to get hurt. I would like to think that police are taught to care about the people that they're supposed to serve and protect. Truth is, we see very little of that in these very dangerous situations. On the street, you'll see videos of police abusing their authority and power. In our personal lives, our friends' lives, we hear stories all the time, right? But I had a interaction with a policeman today. I drove right up next to one. He was standing just 2 feet away from me. He looked at me, smiled, said, "Hey, how you doing, man?" Got no problems. Again, it wasn't a riot. It wasn't a protest. There was no illegal activity going on. Some funny stuff, folks. The way people behave. All right, let's move on though. Latin American preparedness. He says, YouTube announced another form of censorship happening before posting. A prepper use YouTube for the live stream and then remove before posting. Then post on another platform. Thoughts? A prepper use YouTube for the live stream and then remove before posting. I don't understand what you're saying. For some reason, it's not registering. I haven't noticed anything new on YouTube. Today, I have shared or posted YouTube videos, like the one of at Daytona 500 this weekend. Like the people that were there were allowed to go out and sign or write words on the finish line. So there was one particular excellent hillbilly type guy, and the news, local Fox News, walked up, live broadcast, and said, he said, "What are you going to write?" He says, "What do you think I'm going to write? Fuck Joe Biden." Right? And the guy's like, "Oh my God," and he ran off. Right? That's actually on YouTube. And so I posted it, and it didn't give me any caution or warning. I didn't notice anything different. So hopefully I see this and get it figured out. We've got an ever-changing world. Please be aware that they're going to continue to censor us, silence us, or attempt to do those things. They're going to continue to punish or attempt to punish us. They're going to continue to attempt to vilify and demonize us. We're not the bad guys. I don't hurt anyone. I try and help people. I give people options. You and I share valuable information. All right, let's move on here. We got David. He says, "John, there are some real dirtbag humans in the world. Unfortunately, these are the ones the police interact with primarily. Is it any wonder they can justify victimizing people?" This is an interesting point. Policemen. Let me start by going back with this. A while back, I saw a doctor. The doctor says, "How are you feeling?" I said, "Like shit." And I described the complaint. And I was like, "I'm sorry. You probably hear nothing but complaints all day." And the doctor said, No, that's what I'm here for. But they hear complaints all day. Now, police. You don't need anyone to police a well-functioning grocery store, a properly functioning intersection on the street. You don't need the police to function, interact with pedestrians walking up and down the street, behaving well. Police are called to deal with problems. So they're typically interfacing with, at the very least, shall we say, domestic conflicts. They show up at an accident where people are injured, hurt, scared. They're angry at another person thinking they're wrong, or they're angry at themselves for making a mistake. People freak out. People are upset, especially in the presence of police, because they're afraid they're going to do something wrong, say something wrong. They're afraid they're going to be arrested. They don't understand law enforcement. So yeah, police are used to dealing with that. And then on the worst side, they're dealing with drug dealers, murderers, rapists, violent criminals that are whacked out on drugs. And so they say, okay, that's your police action. Whacked out on drugs, pimp beaten up on his hose. Cops roll in there, have to deal with that. Call to action for a policeman is not necessarily a good thing. Now, again, months ago, I dealt with that hit and run that I got involved with and chased the person down. Police showed up. We hit it off, you could say, very well. Very nice cop, right? He took down the information I had. He interacted with me back and forth via email on case and information. very polite, but I can see when there's a call to action to deal with very bad things, how quickly it can escalate into the use of force, an emotional response that's negative. I get it. But when you're the big boy in the room, when you're the adult in the situation, when you have special authority and special power, that should be respected along with the oath. I don't want to be a cop. I don't feel that's me. If you feel you're a cop, remember who you serve, right? Remember that you have a radio, you have a taser, a stick, you have a chemical agent, you have a sidearm, you have rounds of ammunition, you have bulletproof vest. In the center console or in the trunk, you have shotguns and AR-15s, or actually M16s, fully auto. You have the ability to call backup, to call in the entire police force, helicopters, planes. You can call in the sheriff department. Right? You have a lot of authority and power on your side. That should be respected, right? It's not just a tool to use because you're having a bad fucking day. Still, until you've done the job, John, you can't say anything. Well, the fuck I can't. You see, that's another thing is I pay taxes. I am a member of the people. I am one of the people, the sovereign people, meaning I'm not one of the servants. So it's a tricky game. And I really respect law enforcement that is polite and recognizes and treats others with dignity, even in difficult situations. It's very respectable to see that, because that's the way it should be. The same way I see people treating other people with respect. When I see police and citizens interacting and being respectful, it's very nice. When I see people getting out of hand, right, then I know shit has hit the fan. And we've got a lot of that these days. We got Crypto Night checking in. It says, John, I watched some of the videos coming out of Ottawa. Law enforcement officers are throwing death blows. What the fuck? Oh, yeah. So now let's take that next step. I've talked about good cop, bad cop. And when they go bad, and I've seen this now in Ottawa, pulling people aside and kneeing the fuck out of them while other cops stand around laughing, watching, etc. Using nightclubs, shooting people at point blank with tear gas canisters. Now, I've watched protests and riots, folks, for decades, and most notably in the last decade on YouTube. Look them up, you can find them, right? Protests in Europe, where police, law enforcement had 3-foot-long sticks, rods, and they would beat people with them or jab them. They were causing incredible amounts of damage to people for daring to stand up to the government. Yeah, it looks like, they're trying to kill people. When you run someone over, an old lady with a walker, when you run that person over with a horse and then your comrades congratulate you on it and laugh about it and say more, that was awesome, we got a problem. When the Nazis say, show me your papers, we used to lose our fucking minds in America. Really, right? Show us your papers. How about when Nazis would pull a gun out and execute someone on the spot? Or if someone tried running from them, they'd shoot them in the back, right? And then let them suffer. We don't like that. We don't like to see abuse of law enforcement when they're Nazis. And I certainly don't expect that from my own countrymen or the Canadian government. It's very disturbing because it makes every person aware of that, suspicious of all law enforcement. Right? There's a difference between city police and county. There's a difference between state troopers and sheriffs, county sheriff. There's a difference between federal law enforcement and state and local and sheriff. There's a big difference between them, but they all are bound by oath to respect and uphold and defend the Constitution. Follow the Constitution. It's very, very disturbing what's going on, folks. It has hit the fan. Now, I'm going to point out the chief of police for Ottawa, retired. He quit days before this violence started. Apparently, there's United Nations people, troops, advisors, agents, officers, military, someone, a couple of plane loads of them showed up in Canada. I've heard that some of them speak German or some Germanic tongue. That's interesting. I don't know for sure. I haven't, gone up there and talked to them. But we have these interesting reports. We have interesting video. It's both interesting and disturbing. And then listening to the leaders is really, folks, the part that is most disturbing. That's what I find most disturbing, is that the leadership is promoting tyranny by saying anyone who votes against him is voting against democracy. And he's using this type of force, this near lethal force, right, to protect his democracy, when democracy is supposed to be about free speech, free trade, free travel, free thought, free association. It's now not about that. It's about powerful socialism, making decisions for the people, and then forcing them to obey it. Folks, it's at the fan. Are you prepared? Do you have food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense? If you don't, go to the thepreparedmind.club. That's your store. Jolene maintains it. We look at that. We find stuff to put in there, right? So that you can buy what you need to get ready for the troubles that are coming. And they are a-coming. It's 2022, folks. It's just barely begun. We're still not even done with the winter. Wait until it gets warm. Wait until it gets warm. Oh, the FBI. Folks, the FBI, before I go, the FBI. This is their tweet. This is the FBI's tweet just today. Fair elections are the foundation of U.S. democracy. Foreign influence in our elections won't be tolerated, and the FBI will continue to work with local government and private sector partners to disrupt and expose any attempts to erode confidence in the U.S. electoral system. Interesting. Translation that someone gave me was, we at the FBI want to make voter fraud a political issue again, now that it's politically expedient and convenient, and we will be heavily involved in exposing or maybe participating. Well, anyways, voter suppression won't be tolerated. Voter fraud won't be tolerated in the 2022 election. Enjoy your tyranny. Wow. Chance favors the prepared mind is yours. Get prepared now, folks. Godspeed. Semper Fi.